Good morning, everybody, or afternoon or evening, depending on where you're at. I want to say welcome and thank you all for joining us for the first of our 3 sessions today on our PixelNet platform. I'm Justin Chong. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing here at Jupiter, and I'm joined by Devin Wright, our Senior Product Manager. In our last webinar, we introduced kind of our entry-level platform, the J-Series. Today, we're going to go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum and talk about our most comprehensive and flexible platform, PixelNet. Jupiter first introduced PixelNet in 2006. At that time, we were the first and the only highly available distributed AV solution in the world. Since then, we've been kind of continuously improving it. We're 3 years into our second generation, our complete second generation of hardware. And 3 weeks ago, we introduced version 3.4 of the software. Devin is playing Vanna White here and showing you one of the PixelNet nodes. All the PixelNet nodes are similar physically. They are 1U 19-inch rack mount boxes connected to each other via 10 gig. Everything we built is enterprise grade. We wanted to make it as uniform as possible in order to give you kind of the most flexibility we possibly could. Inputs and outputs are going to change based on the needs, but physically and when you look at the front of the box, everything looks pretty much the same other than some of the labeling that built into it. As I said, it's an enterprise grade server running an embedded OS with our patented PixelNet software. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to do a brief overview of Jupiter for those of you who may or may not know who Jupiter is, kind of where we're at, and a really short kind of coverage of our complete product line. We're going to talk about PixelNet in more depth, show you some of the capabilities and features of the platform, as well as a few sample configurations across kind of different things we've seen over the years. We're going to dive into some use cases, and Devin's going to give a demonstration of the system, both from the UI and a view of what the video wall would look like. From your feedback last time, we heard that it was a little difficult at times to view both the content and the video at the same time. So when we get to the demonstration section, I'm going to pause, and we've got a slide that shows you how to resize your windows in Zoom to kind of give you the best, or what we think is the optimized experience. You're free to configure your layout however you'd like. Also, once we get to the questions and answers, please use the Q&A tool in your Zoom toolbar. That allows us to better manage it. We'll hit all of the questions at the end, but feel free to start racking them up as you go through, and then we'll start at the top of the list and work our way down. Lastly, I think at this point, we're going to jump into the presentation and then go from there. Thank you. So, why Jupiter System? We have been the premier supplier since we invented the video wall processor in 1981. Through those 40 years or so of business, we've developed a global footprint across more than 25,000 installations, over 50 countries. We have become really the de facto standard in mission critical 24/7 applications. Jupiter's core DNA, if you will, is really built on that kind of always on, always working, no hiccups, completely reliable platform for your most critical applications. We are agnostic as far as your display, both brand and technology. We work with many, if not most, of the major display manufacturers across everything from LED, LCD, rear projection cubes, standard projectors, CRTs, you name it, we'll drive it. As long as it's got an industry standard interface, we can send our video to it and allow you to control it in whatever method you'd like. We are designed, manufactured, assembled in the US. We are a Delaware corporation based in the United States. As you may know, earlier this year, we gained our independence from InFocus, and since have been kind of charging ahead with launching new products, new platforms, and kind of revamping Jupiter as a whole. I talked a little bit about airtight security. Jupiter's approved, certified, deployed in U.S. military institutions, international military institutions, public safety, three-letter governmental agencies, both domestically and internationally, and has, as far as we know, never been hacked. We offer a unique critical solution enabling collaboration across the control room, and we'll talk a little bit about that platform as we go forward. Again, we're made in the United States. Designed, manufactured, supported, and serviced all here in the building that we're talking to you from in Hayward, California. And we are ISO 9001:2015. So a little bit about our product family, and then we'll dive into PixelNet in more detail. So kind of spanning across the top of everything is our Canvas collaboration solution. It really is that kind of overarching platform that allows you to collaborate in real time across multiple locations, multiple video walls, multiple operator workstations. We did a webinar in Canvas a little while ago. Our upcoming webinar in November will also be a deeper dive into Canvas, and we'll talk. I would give it short shrift if spending some time on it here. Suffice it to say, it allows all of your operators to collaborate across an unlimited number of devices, device types, whether that's a wall, PC, server, smartphone, tablet, you name it, we'll run on it, across an unlimited number of clients and users. On the hardware side and of the platforms, we've got our J series, which we talked about last webinar. It is our entry-level, fast, simple, easy, kind of standalone video wall solution. Catalyst is our bread and butter. It is the world's leading purpose-built display wall processor. It is also a highly available solution, although it is more centralized than PixelNet. And then we've got PixelNet, which was, when we introduced it, the industry's first distributed AV solution. It is highly available, highly redundant, and really has sort of endless possibilities in terms of deployment and solutions. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Devin. He's going to talk in more depth about PixelNet, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you, Justin. My name is Devin Wright. I'm the product manager here at Jupiter, and I'm in charge of basically all the video wall products here at Jupiter. And so I'll be going through the topology diagram. I'll be diving into why PixelNet is a unique product, as well as some of the different types of configurations and deployments that we've seen that really puts a spotlight on PixelNet as a product and its solution, and why is it so flexible. And so with that, we have a lot of content to go through, so let's just jump right in. All right, so here's the PixelNet overview. I just want to quickly show you on the left-hand side here what really a PixelNet system from a high level looks like. And so there's different components to this. The first one I'll talk about is the output nodes. The output nodes are connected directly to the displays. The input nodes connect directly to sources. So for example, if you have HDMI inputs, those get connected through an HDMI cable directly to the node. We also offer DisplayPort inputs as well as SDI inputs. And then we also have a node called Stream Center. This connects directly to a corporate or a video network. And so this is decoding essentially IP streams. On the right-hand side here, we have something called a PixelNet domain controller, which is what we will be referring to as the PDC. Specifically, the PDC software is currently on 3.4. And essentially, the software manages all the different nodes in the system. It does status monitoring. It manages individual bandwidth per node, as well as kind of plays traffic cop. So it tells the input node where to send its signal directly to the output nodes. And so this is really where the control interface is hosted from. And so how you connect all these together, essentially through switches. And when we say it's unlimited amount of sources or displays, what we mean by that is how you connect all these together is through switches. And so once you go beyond a single switch limitation, you can basically start stacking switches together. So it doesn't matter if it's one switch, two switches, three switches, or four switches. And so with that, that's kind of a high level about what PixelNet is. I'll be digging a little bit deeper into the individual components of them. So as an overview, PixelNet is really a video codec. It is a uncompressed video, and that really gives you kind of crystal clear video. It is not a compression, a decompression solution like you see with H.264 or VC2 codecs. That's why it requires to run on 20 gigs of bandwidth per node, right? And it's really to give you that crystal clear video that no other competition can do. It is, like Justin said, the first AV over IP solution introduced back in 2016. It does have military and enterprise grade cybersecurity. It is at its core, it is a codec that Jupiter has patented. And so the only hardware in the world that can encode and decode this codec is PixelNet. We support multiple video walls per system. And so that video wall from a PixelNet standpoint could be a single screen, it could be 1080p, it could be 4K, and that another video wall in that same system could also be 200 screens or 50 screens, right? And so you can have a lot of these different types of options and deployments. We don't want, what you'll notice there's a theme throughout PixelNet is we do not limit you on what you want to do with the system. Once the system is yours, you can do whatever you want. And so it's really a any source, anywhere type of solution. We do offer 100% redundant configurations, and so that redundancy means failover as well. We do have you can have an unlimited amount of sources and displays. Once again, once you go over a switch limitations, you simply just start adding switches together. We do offer a 10 gig SFP plus infrastructure. You can deploy this with copper or dark fiber support, multi-mode or single mode. So how you want to do the interconnect is really up to you from the system integration standpoint and the end user. It is backwards compatible with PixelNet Gen 1. Like we've been saying, it was introduced back in 2006. And so there are some legacy hardware still out there. So we will definitely work with you to on an upgrade path from transitioning from Gen 1 to Gen 2. We've done that many projects in the past couple of years since we introduced Generation 1. And so really the goal is to keep it under the public bid from going out, as well as keeping it under a support contract as well. So we can definitely work with anybody who wants to start upgrading their Gen 1 to Gen 2.
And what that really does is it enables you to not have to forklift out an entire system, but simply to switch out node by node. You don't have to take down your infrastructure. You don't have to impact any of your kind of user functionality and the day-to-day use of the system. We can do them one at a time. We can do them all at the same time, but it connects to the same infrastructure in terms of network. And again, it's a plug them in, unplug one, plug a new one in to enable you that upgrade path to at least impact the end user, as well as Devin said, to keep the system operational and under support.
Once again, we are a designed, assembled, and shipped everything here from Hayward, California. It's actually just over this wall right here, our ISO production floor, and so that's definitely something we are proud of. So I'll be walking through some of the key features of what makes PixelNet very unique in our space. So the first one I'm talking about is, once again, we have multiple video walls per system. You can have an unlimited amount of video walls. We don't limit you to the amount of video walls. We don't limit you on the resolution per screen of that video wall. So for example, it could be LED on one video wall, it could be a 4K on another, it could be full HD on another video wall. And so there really is no limitation on the type of deployment you want for your system. Another very unique thing about PixelNet is we support up to 64 windows per 4K screen. And so if you look at some of the competition out there, this is really what sets PixelNet really apart, because we don't limit you on the amount of windows you can have on a single screen. So for example, on a large format 4K 100-inch screen, for example, you can actually have up to 64 windows on that screen. You can have 64 windows on a LED screen if you want. And so that's really the power and the processing power of PixelNet, and giving you that flexibility on what you want. One of the things I am really proud about, and one thing I really push from a solution standpoint, is all the different inputs that we can have in the system. And so in this specific system, we can have HDMI inputs, DisplayPort, SDI. From the IP streaming side, we can have H.264, MPEG-2, and MPEG-4. And starting with PDC 3.4, we introduced VNC and HTML website support as well. So that's something I'm really proud about. From the operating side, we have a mix of embedded OS that's located on the nodes and Windows 10 located on PDC. You don't have to plug in anything on the network if you don't want to. You can have a totally standalone isolated network. Driving all your displays and visualizing that information if you want. If you want to still control it, you can definitely still connect a RS-232 to do external control using the control system. From the management side, one of the things we're doing with all of the Jupyter products is really making everything web-based. And so really we're creating a unified web-based app. So this is going to be a very intuitive web-based app. It's very simple to use. There's almost no user training, so it's very intuitive.
And it's configurable, so you can assign different authority levels per user. Give your standard user a kind of a basic interface where your administrator has complete control. And again, it's permission-based.
One of the key features that we ported from the Canvas product over to PixelNet is something called the one-touch layout launcher, and essentially this replicates what a control system, what we've seen from a control system. And so it's just a web page that you load up, all your layouts that are currently configured in the system, it represents them as buttons. And so when you press that button, it loads the layout for that specific wall. And so it's very easy, very simplified way of controlling and managing the system. We support resolutions up to true 4K. So the industry standard is currently 3040 by 2160, but this product does support DCI spec of 4K as well. You can achieve 100% uptime, and you do have failover capability with PixelNet. That's something very unique. You cannot get that with other products that you can only have one network connection into the system. Essentially, when that network connection goes down, the whole system fails. So that's very different from the PixelNet side, which we require 2 10 gig networks into the node. And that's something I'll dive a little bit deeper into. We have support for multiple scaling engines per input. And so what that gives you ability to do is, especially if you have multiple video walls, you want to be able to scale each video wall independently per screen or per video wall. And so it really gives you the flexibility of taking any source and really putting it anywhere on the system, and without any limitation. This is getting pretty common and very popular in the industry. Some people call it display tiling, some people call it display looping, big picture, but it really, PixelNet supports this, and it really gives the customer the ability to have less hardware, but still drive the same amount of display. So at its core, so I'll be talking about the PixelNet nodes. First one I'll be talking about is the PDC. So PDC is really the brains of the network. Essentially, it plays traffic out. The input node types, we have HDMI input, full HD or 4K. We have 3G, and we have 12G SDI input options. We also have DisplayPort 4K 60. From the Stream Center node, the Stream Center node supports basically any streaming that comes in from the network or corporate network. This supports IP streams, so for example, H.264. It also now with PixelNet 3.4 supports VNC and websites directly on the Stream Center. And this will help eliminate any extra hardware that you need with other systems that don't support this natively, because then you'll have a dedicated computer for all these different components, whereas the VNC and HTML pages are hosted directly inside the Stream Center. And so that eliminates and really simplifies the deployment. We also have the output, the teammate output node. The teammate output node is basically allows you to connect directly and really drive video walls. So for example, each output node has 6 1920 by 1080p connections. If you have 12 displays in your video wall, you need 2 of them. And in the software, you can logically connect them together to create your video wall. And once again, this is a backwards compatible with PixelNet Generation 1 nodes, so you can have the flexibility of a hybrid solution. So at its core, the PixelNet technology is a PixelPerfect codec, right? And once again, this codec is patented. It is our proprietary secure protocol. Once again, the only hardware in the world that can encode and decode this is the PixelNet hardware. No other hardware can do this. It was developed more than 10 years ago, and essentially this was the first AV over IP video wall product that was released into the market. It is a uncompressed video codec. And it really gives you the flexibility and modular design that I think a lot of people are looking for, and not a lot of other competitive products can achieve. Some deployment options you have is you can have a video wall in the system, you can have a multi-viewer, you can have a matrix switch, and something we introduced early last year is a KVM feature, which is something I have a dedicated slide for, and something I'll definitely review. But you can have a mix of all these different deployment options. You can just have just video wall, you can have just KVM, or you can have a mix of both. So it really gives you the flexibility of any deployment that you have.
And as Devin said, things like KVM, running the web pages natively on the PixelNet systems enables you to reduce some of your other infrastructure that you may need in kind of to drive that. So you don't need a secondary KVM system, or you don't need a dedicated server PC to drive web pages.
We do offer because it is network-based, we have you can really have an unlimited number of inputs and outputs into the system. We do offer redundant switches, redundant nodes, and redundant connections, and the PDC system will automatically fail over within 10 seconds. And so it's really a true mission-critical 24/7, 365 system for your deployment. So it's really critical components. So the next couple slides, I'll be talking about the different configurations where really PixelNet shines, especially against a lot of competition. And so the first one I'll be talking about is a very large single wall configuration. And so I'll just be talking about this topology really quickly. So on the right-hand side, you have all your input sources. These could be any computer that you want, workstations, MacBooks, TV tuners, whatever you have. Those get connected directly, physically get connected into an input node. Your Stream Center node down here gets connected to your video network or your corporate network to decode all your IP streams. Those all get connected into your main switches, which is the PixelNet domain here. And on the PDC down here, basically is the plays traffic off. Once again, it manages all the input, all the nodes within the totality of the system. And so it knows what is connected, what is the hardware status, and how to send any input signal to any output signal. And here on the left-hand side, which is a large video wall, we have 14 output nodes driving this 27-screen 4K video wall. The reason why this is unique to PixelNet is because server-based video wall processors, for example, Windows, does have some limitations to it. So Windows does have some limitations on the number of pixels wide, the number of pixels high, and the total number of pixels, as well as the total number of GPUs you can actually put in the system. Because PixelNet is a distributed network-based system, it does not have that limitation. And so that's the beauty about this product, is it really does not offer any limitations So any configuration that you may have. And once again, you can have any source anywhere. So you can have one input, one 4K input stretched across this whole screen, this 27 screen video wall, or you can have up to 64 windows per individual 4K screen if you want, depending on how many sources you have. And so it really gives you the flexibility of any play. The second topology I want to talk, or configuration I want to talk about, is the multi-video wall. And so we still have the same amount of source types we have on the right-hand side. Obviously, PDC is still there. Our network switches are still there. But now we have a different configuration from the output side. And so this configuration is getting really popular. And so I quickly want to explain what we're looking at here. On the top-hand side, you're looking at the main video wall. This could be a 3x2 video wall. Each output node, once again, can drive 6 1920 by 1080p screens. And so here, you only need one output node to drive the 6-screen video wall. This could be in a conference room, executive room, lobby. You can literally place this video wall wherever you want, as long as you can run an output node. And then on the left-hand side, this is where it gets a little unique with PixelNet, is you have one output node actually driving 5 different video walls. So room, conference room A, B, C, and D. These are all have single screen video walls. So from PDC level, we treat everything like a video wall, whether it's 1 screen or 100 screens. And so from a software standpoint, and PixelNet standpoint, these are all different video walls. These are just single screen video walls. And room E is pretty unique because it has a 2x1 video wall. And so if all these are full HD resolution, a single output node can drive multiple video walls. And so that's the flexibility and the processing power of PixelNet. One thing I do want to mention is that you can put one source across all these different video walls as well. So if you have one source like a content PC or a graphical map, you can stretch it across your main video wall and still have the flexibility of putting it on all your different conferences as well. So they could be considered breakout rooms, war rooms, executive rooms, right? And to really have the processing power and flexibility to do what any type of configuration you want at any given time.
And that includes things like operator workstation. It doesn't necessarily need to be a monitor mounted on a wall. It could be an operator workstation viewing what's going on as well.
So we're talking now a little bit about our KVM solution. I've been currently referring to all of our video walls. And typically at Jupiter, we call video walls unmanned displays because they don't have a keyboard and mouse attached to them. Typically, you manage these video walls remotely on a workstation, right, using a web browser, for example, or using a control system to control the video wall. But it typically never has a keyboard and mouse. Now, in order to get the KVM feature enabled in PixelNet, essentially all you have to do is plug in a keyboard and mouse into an output node of a video wall, and that converts it from a video wall to a workstation. And what that will happen on the software will automatically recognize that a keyboard and mouse is plugged in into that video wall, converts it to a workstation, and now that workstation now has a cursor on that video wall. And once again, the video wall can be a single screen located at an operator workstation, or it could be a giant video wall driving your large format wall, for example. But in both scenarios, a cursor will show up on the output node, and then you can start managing all your video walls there. So the KVM solution is really unique because it doesn't limit you on the amount of sources you can control. So on the right-hand side, we have physical inputs that are connected. If you have those inputs up on the output node or the video wall that is a workstation, now you can remotely take control of that source. So it actually goes through the PixelNet network and through the input node and controls the keyboard and mouse of that system. So it's very easy, very unique. You don't have to jump in, jump out into any any source, the cursor will freely scale over multiple windows. The last thing I want to mention about this is you can also take control over VNC connections as well as websites. And once again, those are hosted directly into the Stream Center, so it really eliminates a lot of the hardware that's required for deployments for other solutions as well. Here is our redundant configurations that you can have. This is a 2-switch configuration. We call this a back-to-back. But essentially, each output and input node requires 2 10 gig SFP plus connections for a total of 20 gigs of bandwidth. Each connection will then will be plugged into each individual switch, like you see here. And those switches are connected together using 100 gig links. And so this is how you get a total system. The PDC only requires 1 SFP plus connection. They will get plugged into each switch. And so, for example, if you see this on the switch on your left-hand side, if this needs to be serviced or the power goes out to this switch, what will happen is all the nodes will now run on 10 gig bandwidth. And essentially what will happen in the system is everything will still stay up. PDC will fail over within 10 seconds to the secondary PDC server. And then all the frame rate will automatically adjust according to 10 gigs of bandwidth.
But in this configuration, kind of standard operation, we do load balance across both switches and across the PDCs. So it gives you kind of the optimal and maximizes the bandwidth that's available and only scales down should a component fail somewhere during the operation. So for use cases, before we jump into the demo, as you know, Jupyter's built our history and our reputation on being 24/7, 365. And PixelNet really is kind of the pinnacle of that sort of mentality and operation. Really kind of the 3 primary use cases, but with the flexibility that we've got, you can use it for practically anything. Our bread and butter control rooms, things like utilities. If you've been watching the news, you've seen some of the wildfires here that we've had in California. Things like fire operations, gas operations for utilities, as well as kind of standard day-to-day routing and transmission utilities, both for gas and electric. We have multiple deployments in tens, if not hundreds of utilities doing that. Commercial and corporate applications, things like distributed digital signage across multiple corporate control rooms. And then emergency operation centers, whether that's a 911 center, whether that is a police, fire, EMS, could be FEMA type operations for situational emergencies. We cover them all and give them that sort of criticality when it's needed. They know that they can count on their system. We talked about security sensitive environments and kind of the patented and really tightly controlled, not just operating system, but PixelNet software and how we encode and decode the video, or how we transmit the video over the network, not encode and decode, but how we transmit the video over the network on our proprietary technology. It is military and aircraft grade, there's no question about that. We are in multiple, as I said, U.S. and international military installations, as well as enterprises and kind of local and state level police, fire, traffic control sort of application. On signage and distributed systems, we're starting to see more and more PixelNet deployed across airports, where you have a single control center driving multiple regional airports or kind of carbon copies of the same airport to give you arrival and departure information. Could be digital signage, could be an emergency alert sorts of system, but really spread across multiple airports with a single unified control room driving all of them. Saves on personnel costs, as well as kind of unifies the messaging you get out there. Building automation is another one where we're seeing a big uptick in. We're integrated with the world's largest building automation systems. 100-floor skyscrapers have fairly complex systems in terms of HVAC, energy management, fire, elevator systems, you name it, All of that's automated at this point, generally driven by a control room sitting in the basement. And we're starting to see PixelNet deployed in those control rooms to give you those sorts of things, and then roll in the digital signage that goes with that in those different environments. And then campus monitoring. Devin talked a little bit about kind of the fiber topology, but one thing I wanted to hit on was there's no effective limit in the distance between the switch and the node. We've had one deployment in particular that went from California to Korea on a single fiber connection. So there, you can distribute the components across your network and across your estate in multiple buildings, across a campus, across a city, multiple campuses, and really control it again, give you a unified messaging and kind of unified control across that entire estate. So with that, we're getting close on time, so we're going to jump into the demo. As I said, taking your feedback from last time, one thing we were playing with to optimize the experience really is if you go into the view options of your Zoom toolbar and move it to side-by-side mode, you'll be able to see the user interface that Devin's going to be working in, and then the image of the video wall itself, which we've got, I described earlier, a webcam pointing at a video wall here in our studio. And that will give you what we think is kind of the best of both worlds.
All right, with that, let's jump into the demo. So, and so what you'll see on your screen is on the left-hand side is our user interface. On the right-hand side is our video wall. This is a special kind of video wall or special display. Sorry, the special display. It has 4 inputs, and it's basically configured as a 2x2 with a single pane of glass. And so that's why in the system, you'll notice that these dark black lines are the display boundaries. These smaller gray lines are what we call grid lines, and this basically just helps you align the window to where you want on the wall, so you can snap directly to the grid. All these grid options are available, so you can configure it as a 2x2, you can configure it as a 4x4, which is what we have here, or like I've been saying, you can configure it as 8x8 for up to 64 windows per screen, or you can even turn it off if you want prescaling. So, as you notice, what I've been doing, as I manipulate and manage the user interface on the left-hand side of your screen, on the right-hand screen, my video wall will automatically replicate or mimic what is happening. And so that is why we call this tool inside the product Mimic, because it mimics what is happening on the video wall. As you can see in front of you, we have live thumbnails or preview of what is happening and what is ingesting in that source. And this includes all of our input sources, as well as IP sources, VNC, and HTML. So it definitely gives you all that preview of what is happening in the system.
So Gavin, you want to talk about the PixelNet system that we've got configured driving this here, what it actually entails?
Yeah, so the PixelNet system where we have here is we currently have 16 sources from a mix of input sources, output sources. We have actually 2 video walls in this system. We got 1 video, they're all driven off the same node. We have a 2x2 configuration, what we have here. All right, and then we also have a single video wall, which I'll show you a little bit actually. So when you first log in, this is the screen that you'll be presented with. You have the option of 1 or 2 video walls. So we're currently on the main video wall. But once again, you can put on any content on any one of the video walls that you want, and they can be assigned. So it's very simple, easy to use, intuitive, right? It's a simple drag to handle product. If you want to open up a new window, you select your new source. You select what source you want. So for example, let's just click on this, and the new window will now open up on the video wall, as you can see on the left and right-hand side of your screen. I can easily drag, resize the window. It can do infinite amount of picture-in-picture. That's another great thing about PixelNet, is you can actually overlay as many pictures as you want. So you can send this to the back, right? You can bring to the front. And so you can have as many picture-in-picture images as you want. That's the great thing about PixelNet. We don't limit you to the number of windows or sources you can have on individual screens. Once again, if we go to 64, we don't limit you to 2 or 4 windows on a single screen. And so we also have the ability to load layouts, or some people call them templates. So if we load a layout of just say one window, a layout for us is basically recalling a Windows state. These layouts are shared within all of PixelNet, and so one layout, one second, it takes a little bit to auto adjust. So one layout can automatically be applied to this 2x2 video wall, or it can be applied to a single screen video wall, and it'll auto adjust to the size. So you really don't think about it. Once you save your layout, now it's available to all the different systems if you want. So this is a single screen layout. Let's move on to the another layout right here.
The one thing I'd like to note on this is the webcam focusing on the video wall. The video wall instantly snaps into place in terms of resolution.
Yeah, so I have currently 16 sources available here. I can, even though I have other windows on the screen, I can easily just resize them over it. And what you'll notice on the left-hand side is I have overlay. I can still see what's happening on the individual pictures in the background, so they are still rendering. But on the right-hand screen, right, the video wall is actually overlaying in a picture-in-picture mode. And so I can do this as many times. Or once again, PixelNet does not limit you on what it can do. The last layout I want to show you is a single screen. So we can actually put all these 16 different images on one screen. 1 second, autofocus. So we have 16 sources on a single 1920 by 1080 screen. Of course, you can now resize this and auto adjust to any size and orient the video wall however you want. I do want to show you the One Touch feature. This came from PixelNet. This gives you ability to basically with one touch. These are all the different layouts that we had in the previous user interface, right? These are all the same type of layouts. So if I select one window, what you'll see is with one touch of a button, a layout will load. And so whatever layouts are configured in the system, they will automatically show up here. This web page is responsive, so you can load it on a mobile phone, for example, and then it'll just have a column of rows, so it will adjust and adapt to whatever device is actually being loaded on. So that concludes the demo. We're going to go back to the presentation.
Perfect. So we're going to kind of wrap it up and then get to Q&A here in a minute. But really, again, want to kind of focus on why PixelNet. We are the best, most comprehensive AV over IP solution available today. We have our patented audio video codec, which gives you the ability to make it as secure as humanly possible. We are, more than 5 nines reliable in terms of uptime, but with both redundant hardware, software set up to automatically fail over. We have pretty much any input option you can think of in terms of whether it's a direct connect or an IP input, as well as backwards compatibility to the product that we released 14 years ago. It is ultimately flexible. An unlimited number of inputs and outputs across an unlimited number of video walls stretched across the entire world. If you can pull fiber to it, we can connect to it. You can do it in sort of any orientation that you'd like. We can drive up to 64 windows per display, which is unique in the market today. and give you the ability to go whether fiber or copper, depending on the need and the deployment, to allow you to kind of economize as best possible.
All right, the KVM solution basically converts any of your video walls into a workstation. It enables you to control workstations, VNC sources, as well as web pages. And it really enables the user or operator to control multiple workstations or multiple windows and sources, all on their individual screens, right? And so that's a really powerful tool. You can control one or more multiple sources all at the same time. So what's coming next? PixelNet 3.5 is scheduled to be released later this year. We are going to be integrating with Canvas. And what that means is now Jupyter's going to have a unified platform. We're going to have a centralized video wall management solution throughout the company. And so what that means is we're going to have a very tight integration, not only with the Canvas software, but also with the Catalyst hardware. The user interface I showed before will be updated a little bit. It'll be featured, it will have a drag and drop functionality, which is what currently Catalyst and Canvas has. So we'll have that feature, so it'll still have all the thumbnails, but it also gives you that centralized management where you log into one user interface and permissions are assigned, and all the video walls or displays that are assigned to your user account, you will have access to all in a single web page.
As well as the IM chat functionality, the snapshot functionality, everything you get in Canvas, we're going to stretch across PixelNet as well.
We are expanding our output node capability and functionality. It's going to have integrated audio output. We have a new sync mechanism, which eliminates some of the hardware requirements, and so obviously that's cost savings when you talk about hardware. So we're passing that on to the system integrator and ultimately the end user. And once again, it is backwards compatible with PixelNet 1, as well as even our current PixelNet 2 systems that we have currently shipped out there.
And then lastly, we got feedback when we have tens or hundreds of these racked up in a rack. Sometimes it's hard to determine which node is driving which output or input. So one of the things we've incorporated in the 3.5 is an LED on both the front and the back of the actual physical box that you can set to blink. So for easy identification when you're in the IDF, if there's an issue, if there's a problem, if you need to recable, if you need to make any kind of moves, adds, or changes, you can light up a specific node that would give you, a much quicker path to any sort of resolution you need, as opposed to fumbling around in the server room. So, in summary, uncompressed, military-grade security, backed up by Jupyter's, 40 years of experience and history in this market, being a 24/7, 365 platform that is supported, managed in-house by us, developed here all the way through and into life and in support. Everything happens under a single roof here at Jupyter Systems with our Jupyter employees. It's flexible and modular across any deployment. It has 100%, and that's a big number, but 100% security as far as we know. Never been penetrated, never had any issues with anybody getting into a PixelNet system.
It is simple and easy to configure in the field. So how we do the shipment is we test everything in our production floor.
We actually configure the system to your requirements. We work with you to make sure that it's built and configured as close to as possible what it's going to be deployed at. We load the software, set it all up so that when it gets delivered and deployed, it's more about plugging it in and setting up the sources and the outputs, as opposed to loading and configuring and doing anything with the software and the system itself.
Yeah, the PixelNet has a lot of deployment options. You can deploy a video wall, multi-viewer, matrix switch, and the KVM functionality. Once again, you can have one or multiple of these deployment options within a single PixelNet system. PixelNet supports all the different display brands and technology types, including LED, LCD, rear projection cubes, projectors, Essentially, what PixelNet wants to do is just drive it at whatever resolution is required. It has unlimited amount of video walls, sources, and displays that you can connect into the system. It has you can have a redundant hardware for 24/7, 365 uptime. And the control page, as I showed, is extremely easy to use. It's very intuitive. We believe there really is no training. Once you present that control page or user interface to the user, right, they will intuitively just go into it and be able to manage the video accordingly.
Okay, so with that, again, I want to thank everybody for joining. Thanks
Thank you,
again.
everybody. Bye.
Bye.